Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2025, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 75 years of 77 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with commemorations. So as we have been busy with various other events, so we had a few commemorations which were left out due to paucity of time. We will take up those commemorations as well as part of this. So today is commemorated as Virtual Advocacy Day to understand and be involved in the legislative process on Virtual Advocacy Day, which takes place annually on March 28, allows constituents to advance their collective agendas through virtual meetings with Congress members and their staff. So you can also learn more about how the legislative process affects a cause that you and others in your state are passionate about. Join key stakeholders such as yourself to champion and advance legislation. Register for events close to your heart, send a letter to Congress, donate or volunteer. Any method you choose to advocate allows your community to talk about and make visible changes about important issues. So to understand what advocacy means, we must first understand the Latin word advocate, which means to call out for help. Advocates have been there since ancient Rome and Greece, when well-known orators took on the role of pleading someone's cause or authored orations to do so. Roman lawyers and advocates like Caesar were legendary. It is an important concept that virtual advocacy expresses while influencing public policy is essential. Lobbying in the digital and networked age is much more about influencing public opinion. Advocates must put in time and effort needed to organize their efforts to achieve their goals. Advocacy is to guarantee that all people in the society have the opportunity to speak out on the topics that matter to them. Their rights must be protected and defended. You need to consider if their thoughts and desires are taken into account while making decisions concerning their lives. Advocacy began as a way for people to express their moral convictions. Advocacy has changed dramatically throughout the years. There are people around the world who don't have anyone with the power to offer and aid them can go get help thanks to a more organized effort today. More finance, more political support, and more influence are needed for advocacy to grow into something even greater than it already is. So everybody has a responsibility to contribute in whatever manner they can in face of global crisis thanks to the emergence of advocacy. So the first appearance has been as a noun that the term advocate first appears in English language in 1300s. The Salvation Army, one of the oldest advocacy groups in the West, is established in 1852. The Red Cross begins in its operations in 1881, and the citizen advocacy, the first citizen advocacy scheme, begins in America in 1966. So most likely you will be with a member, you will meet with a member of House or Senate administrative staff instead, given the time constraints on elected officials. There is a direct channel of communication between member and his or her congressional staff members. When legislatures are making decisions, their aides give them the facts they need. Depending on the event, when registering for some virtual events, you are asked to self-identify to ascertain if you are over age of 18. A waiver may be asked for, so read and terms and conditions first. Even though the meeting is held virtually, it is important to address as you would be in a physical meeting. Business attire is a good way to go. Personal stories have an unmistakable impact of people. Share your story with world on this day to inspire others and effect meaningful change. Your legislators must be informed of your concerns. Your phone calls and letters demonstrate to legislatures how strongly their citizens support the cause in their state without speaking up. New legislation may not be passed and existing legislation may not be protected. So make sure you follow your local legislators on social media. You may also be sign up for newsletters through their websites. A large number of legislators use these platforms to communicate their views on legislation, post forthcoming events, and engage with their constituents. So you can also leave comments and ask questions on their platform. So raising your voice by writing letters to the editor is one of the numerous methods. You may share your letter with the world, further increasing its reach. You can advocate virtually through emails that will reach your lawmakers. Using video testimonials from advocates is a terrific method to tell stories of success. So you can then post the messages you have recorded on social media. Advocacy groups may encourage their supporters to use social media messages, infographics, hashtags, and profile images and banners that they own demonstrate their support and assist spread their ideas further. Community charity organizations can see virtual visits as a substitute for inviting members of Congress, their staff, or other representatives to visit their facilities and observe the mission in action. Face to face or in person, advocacy can only be carried by those who are physically present in the same room at the same time. As a result of these limitations being removed via virtual democracy, more people who didn't participate in person before can now do so. Its engagement with lawmakers, the fact that it exists does not preclude advocates from communicating with lawmakers and their staff, and this is always very important to drive beneficial change. So by bringing together people from all around the country, you can broaden the scope of your advocacy efforts and better represent the interests of your constituents. People who cannot attend due to several reasons, such as living with disabilities, can do so now and have opinions represented. So, as we were having other sessions, so we could not do few commemorations. So we will go back to those commemorations. So World's Down Syndrome Day, which is celebrated 21st March every year. Down syndrome occurs when an individual has an extra partial or whole copy of chromosome 21st. It is not yet known why syndrome occurs, but Down syndrome has always been part of the human condition. It exists in all regions across the globe, commonly results in variable effects on learning styles, physical characteristics, and health. Adequate access to healthcare, to early intervention programs, and to inclusive education, as well as appropriate research, are vital to the growth and development of all individuals. In December 2011, the General Assembly declared 21st March as World Down Syndrome Day. The General Assembly, divided with effect from 2012, to observe World Down Syndrome Day on 21st March each year. So, in order to raise public awareness of Down syndrome, the General Assembly invites all member states, relevant organizations of United Nations system, and other international organizations, as well as civil society, including non-governmental organizations and the private sector, to observe World Down Syndrome Day in an appropriate manner. The estimated incidence of Down syndrome is between 1 in 1,000 and in 1 in 1,100 live births worldwide. Each year, approximately 3,000 to 5,000 children are born with the chromosome disorder. The quality of life of people with Down syndrome can be imposed by meeting their healthcare needs, include regular checkups with health professionals to monitor mental and physical condition, and to provide timely intervention to the physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, counseling, or special education. Individuals with Down syndrome can achieve optimal quality of life through parental care and support, medical guidance, and community based support systems, such as inclusive education at all levels. This facilitates their participation in mainstream society and the fulfillment of their personal potential. So everyone needs support sometime. People with Down syndrome need support to live and be included in the community like everyone else. Families also need support, as they are often supporting their family member with Down syndrome. Many people with Down syndrome around the world don't get the support they need. Many countries do not have support systems that meet the needs of people with disabilities and their families of the support systems they have do not respect the human rights of people with disabilities. Governments must make sure there is a support system so people with disabilities are included in the community. So 22nd March is commemorated as World Water Day with the theme Save Our Glaciers. Glaciers are melting faster than ever as the planet gets hotter. Our frozen world is shrinking, making the water cycle more unpredictable. For billions of people, meltwater flows are changing, causing floods, droughts, landslides, and sea level rise. Countless communities and ecosystems are at risk of devastation. As we work together to mitigate and adapt to climate change, glacier preservation is a top priority. We must reduce greenhouse gas emissions to slow down glacial retreat, and we must manage meltwater more sustainably. Saving our glaciers is a survival strategy for people and the planet. The theme of World Water Day is glacier preservation. Glaciers are crucial to life. Their meltwater is essential for drinking water, agriculture, industry, clean energy production, and healthy ecosystems. Rapidly melting glaciers are causing uncertainty to water flows and profound impacts on people and the planet. Global, global reductions in carbon emissions and local strategies to adapt to shrinking glaciers are essential. This World Water Day, we must work together to put glaciers at the core of our plans to tackle climate change and end global water crisis. So glaciers are melting faster than ever as the planet gets hotter due to climate change. Our frozen world is shrinking, making the water cycle more unpredictable and extreme. Glaciers retreat, devastation for billions of people, meltwater flows are changing, causing floods, droughts, landslides, and sea level rise and damaging ecosystems. Glacier preservation is a survival strategy. We must work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and manage meltwater more sustainably for people and planet. March 22nd, 23rd is commemorated as the World Meteorological Organization Day for World Meteorological Organization commemorates the coming into force of the convention establishing the World Meteorological Organization on 23rd March 1950, so commemorated as World Meteorological Day. It showcases the essential contribution of national meteorological and hydrological services to the safety and well-being of the society and is celebrated with activities around the world. The theme chosen for World Meteorological Day reflect topical weather, climate, or water-related issues. March 24th is also commemorated as World Tuberculosis Day. Every year, we commemorate World TB Day to raise awareness about the devastating health, social economic consequences of tuberculosis, TB, and to step up efforts to end global TB epidemic. So the date marks the day in 1882 when Dr. Robert Koch announced that he had discovered the bacterium that causes TB, which opened the way towards diagnosing and curing this disease. So this year, the theme for World TB Day is Yes, we can end TB, commit, invest, and deliver. 79 million lives saved since 2000 by the global efforts to end TB, and 10.8 million people fell ill with TB in 2023, and 1.25 million people died of TB in 2023. So, World TB Day, observed annually on March 24th, amplifies the urgency of ending tuberculosis, the world's deadliest infectious disease. TB continues to devastate millions globally, inflicting severe health, social, and economic consequences. This year's themes, Yes, We Can End TB, Commit, Invest, Deliver, is a bold call for hope, urgency, and accountability. So March 24th is also commemorated as International Day for the Right to the Truth concerning gross human rights violations and for the dignity of victims. On March 24th, the right to the truth is often invoked in the context of gross violations of human rights and grave breaches of humanitarian law. The relatives of victims of summary executions, enforced disappearance, missing persons, abducted children, torture required to know what happened to them. The right to the truth implies knowing the full and complete truth to the events that transpired, their specific circumstances, and who participated in them, including knowing the circumstance in which the violations took place as a reason for them. So each year on 24th, the International Day for the Right to the Truth concerning gross human violations, took place as well as the reasons for them. Each year, the annual observance each year on 24th March on of International Day for the Right to the Truth concerning gross human rights violation and for dignity of victims is observed. The annual observation pays tribute to the memory of Monsignor Oscar Amelfo Romero, who was murdered on 24th March 1980. Monsignor Romero was actively engaged in denouncing violations of the human rights of the most vulnerable individuals in El Salvador. The purpose of the day is to honor the memory of victims of gross and systematic human rights violations and promote the importance of right to truth and justice. Pay tribute to those who have devoted their lives and lost their lives, struggle to promote and protect human rights for all. Recognize in particular the important work and values of Archbishop Oscar Arnulfo Romero of El Salvador, who was assassinated on 24th March 1980 after denouncing violations of the human rights of the most vulnerable populations and defending the principles of protecting lives and promoting human dignity and opposition to all forms of violence. 25th March is also commemorated as International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and Transatlantic Slave Trade. Acknowledging the past, repair the present, build a future of dignity and justice. The transatlantic trade is enslaved Africans, which operated between 15th and late 19th centuries, involved in the horrific trafficking of millions of women, men, and children, mostly from West Africa to the Americas. The forced displacement enriched empirical and other powers. It also gave rise to false narratives of white supremacy and racial inferiority, which were used to justify this shameful practice and continue to plague our societies today. Because the transatlantic trade is enslaved, Africans had a direct effect on the modern conceptions of race, and a narrating of this period is necessary to fight its legacies, including racism and prejudice. The International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic slave trade is therefore not just about remembering the past, it's about taking action today to dismantle the structure that continue to hold back to the African descent. This day is also about education, the International Day of Remembrance of the Victim of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade is a time for reflection, but is also a time for education. Despite myths of the country, to the contrary, enslaved Africans enriched the Americans not just through their labor, but also through a transfer of vital skills and knowledge. In addition, rather than accepting their fate, they engaged in powerful acts of resistance. The United Nations works to highlight such stories through its outreach program on the transatlantic slave trade and slavery, which is managed by the Department of Global Communications, and the Roots of Enslaved Peoples Project, which is run by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, in short known as UNESCO. 25th March is also known as International Day of Solidarity with Detained and Missing Staff Members, protecting the UN staff since the founding of the United Nations in 1945. Hundreds of brave men and women have lost their lives in its service. During the 1990s, the growing number of and scale of UN peacekeeping missions put many more at risk. More lives were lost during the 1900s than in the previous 4 decades combined. At that time, an awareness began to develop among member states and staff that more than active the UN become in the future, the more it was going to be targeted. The first resolution on staff security was adopted by the UN Security Council in September 1999. Complex negotiations subsequently took place in the Sixth Legal Committee of the General Assembly on International Legal Convention to protect UN personnel. The result of those negotiations was the Convention on the Safety of the United Nations and Associated Personnel, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly on 9 December 1990. So, the International Day of Solidarity with Detained and Missing Staff Members is marked each year on the anniversary of the abduction of Alec Collette, a former journalist who was working for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, when he was abducted by armed gunmen in 1985. His body was finally found in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley in 2009. The International Day of Solidarity with Detained and Missing Staff Members has taken on even greater importance in recent years as attack against the United Nations intensify. This is a day to mobilize action, demand justice, and strengthen our resolve to protect UN staff and peacekeepers, as well as our colleagues in non-governmental community and the press. So this is a day to mobilize action, demand justice, and strengthen our resolve to protect UN staff and peacekeepers, as well as our colleagues in the non-governmental community and the press. So with this, we shall end today's commemorations. Thank you, everyone. And as already announced and informed, we'll be having March 31st Open Social Work Day, which is the last day of Social Work Month. We'll be concluding, and after that or on that day, whoever completes the formalities, certificates will be distributed for those who will be completing the formalities. And all those who have not completed their formalities are requested to complete their formalities at the earliest or immediately so that you'll be able to receive the certificate. So we wish you all the success and we invite you once again for the last day of World Social Work Month celebrations. Take care. Good night. Before leaving, we request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form, which has been raised in the form of polls.